Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It is here. The regular season starting up today.
It's NBA Day.
It's NBA Day. I love it. I love it. It's not even Front Office Friday, but we still get Keith yelling. It is NBA Day. This day, it's right up there on par with Christmas because the NBA, it is back. It's so exciting to have the NBA back. The regular season in action tonight. We're going to talk a bit about that. But most of this show is going to be about our predictions. What do we think is going to happen for the coming season, particularly the standings? We're going to take a look at some of the major awards, that sort of thing. And in the mix, I'm sure we'll get into some of our bold predictions as well. And that's going to come out when we get into these standings. Keith, I'm about as excited as could be because the NBA, man, it is back.
Yeah, it's this season too feels super wide open.
Yeah.
Like last season felt wide open. This one feels even more so. And that's no disrespect, man, to the Denver Nuggets, who are, very worthy champions. And, quite frankly, I feel like are getting overlooked a little bit. Like TNT's graphic for opening night didn't even have a Nugget. It had Jason Tatum on there, and they're not even playing, which is a little weird, but I'm sure Michael Malone is filing it away and making sure his players are aware. And
yes,
we'll
the much maligned Denver Nuggets. Woe is them.
Yeah, I know. I know you have certain feelings, but it is weird when
they're
opening night graphics don't even feature the team that's
sure.
Kind of what opening night is about. But anyway, I'm super psyched for this season. I think we have some, like with Denver and the Lakers, we have some pettiness and some rivalries maybe building that always makes it a little bit better when we go. Unfortunately, we've had a few injuries, that are going to keep guys out.
Yes.
We've got a couple of suspensions. We'll get into that as we go into all of our standing predictions today. But yeah, man, I cannot wait to get all this kicked off. And so everybody knows what we're going to do here. We're not going to go super duper in depth on every single team, but we are going to predict where we see the East and the West 1 through 15, who our teams obviously in the playoffs are. You just know, I know for me, at least with a couple of teams, I might have them a little further down in the standings, but that's just, and I'm trying to remember and mention it when we talk about them. That's just a reflection of where I see them as a regular season team. That doesn't necessarily mean how they'll be in the playoffs. So we'll try to call that out. When we get to the playoffs, we'll talk about the conference finalists, the NBA finalists, pick a champ, and then we're going to pick some winners for some of the major awards. And I'm sure we'll get into some sort of foolishness as we go, because that's just what we do here.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to mention, is that when we're looking at this, we have to factor in that not every team keeps their foot down on the gas pedal the entire season during the regular season. There's some teams that they're going to
Clippers.
Right. Well, they say this year we're going to care about the regular season. We'll see.
Spoiler alert, I'm not buying in this year. I'm out. I'm done. I'm not buying in on it.
I looked at my predictions for last year. I had them in the finals last year.
Yeah.
I had them in the finals last year, and then
I might have had them in the finals, or
we got burned.
It's for the life of the show, I think, or at least the YouTube version of the show. I've been pretty high on them, and I'm not there this year, so forget you. See you later, Clippers.
We'll get to that when we get to the Western Conference. Let's kick things off with your East, though. Let's take a look at the East, the Eastern Conference. I'm going to put up I'm going to go soccer. I'm going to put up the table from last year, so everybody can see how that finished up. And we're going to share what we think the standings are going to be for this season. So here's this is on ESPN.
Yeah,
the Eastern Conference standings from last season. Keith, this is your conference. Why don't you take first crack at this?
Oh, well, let me ask, do you want to do it 15-1, or do you want to go 1-15? I think let's just do 1-15.
That's fine.
So it doesn't get confusing. All right.
Yeah.
So for me, and I apologize, I'm going to look off camera here. Because I've got my sheet pulled up, because I'm a huge super nerd, as everybody knows. I went through and actually put win totals on everybody, made sure it all totaled out to 1,230, because that's how many games there are, and all the good fun with all that. But I won't go bore everybody to tears with a bunch of win totals they can't see. So number one in the conference, call me a homer if you want. I have the Celtics at the top.
Mhm.
followed by Milwaukee. That is kind of my tier break in the East. There are other teams I like in the East, but I think those two are really, at this point, they're kind of the cream of the crop in the Eastern Conference. I think they both loaded up this offseason with guys, and I think they're set to have very good regular seasons. So that's my top two. I'll just run through my six playoff teams.
Okay.
First there. So then I have behind them Cleveland, New York, Philadelphia, and Miami. Miami is where I'll put in the qualifier of I don't really know what to do with them in the regular season because I don't know how seriously they're going to take it, how hard they're going to push. Philadelphia, that's a whole mystery box there. So kind of slotting them in to the middle of the playoff pack feels right. I like Cleveland. I think they had a really solid offseason. So I think they're going to be a pretty good regular season team. I think New York is set up to be a pretty good regular season team. Then Philly and Miami round out my top six. So Boston, Milwaukee, Cleveland, New York, Philly, Miami.
Okay. I like it. I'll say this. So when I look at the Eastern Conference, I agree. I see two top tier teams. I see the Celtics and the Bucks, and I also, just to prove that I'm not being a homer here, I've also got it, and you're not being a homer, I've also got it in that order. I've got it Celtics and then Bucks. Still have a bad taste in my mouth from the playoffs from last year. Yes, the Bucks added Dame, but I think they've added some defensive concerns with that. So I'm going to put the Celtics ahead of them for the time being. But obviously the Bucks are the clear second team in this. I don't think there's any question there, or any debate really. After that, and this may be honest, I'll be as truthful as I can be, Keith. This may be a little bit of jealousy here, because I look at the East and I'm like, after that, it's just kind of a mess. The West,
Yeah.
there's a couple of okay teams, but compared to the West, I'm looking at the Eastern Conference going, my God, why can't we be in the East? Because you've got multiple teams where roll the ball out and you should beat this team, right? Like that's the scenario in the Eastern Conference. The parity in the West, it's going to be rough this year. I go this way. I think the team with the most upside of the rest of the group is Cleveland, and so I've got them in my third spot. I'm thinking Evan Mobley's going to make the leap this year, and so I've got Cavs. Then I have Heat. I think you bring up a good point, enough to make me second guess whether they should be in the fourth spot, about them carrying during the regular season. I think they go into the regular season with a chip on their shoulder, though, after not getting Dame. I think Tyler Hero is particularly upset. And so I think
but Pat Riley says they never tried to trade him. Sure. Sure.
Just walk it right back. Just walk it right back. Loki didn't want power either. He was only doing what was best for Asgard,
Yeah,
right? It's the spin of it all. And then I go Knicks in the 5 seed. 76ers, I just kind of threw in there because who the hell knows what's going to happen with them, right? Like,
it feels like we're in like year 3 of that with them,
right?
So that's fun.
The Hawks.
All right, hold on. Sorry, let me go back. Miami was 4, Knicks were 5.
Yes.
Okay, I'm tracking them just so we can hold ourselves accountable later.
I am not surprised
Knicks
at all.
Are 5. Philadelphia was 6.
Yes, Philadelphia was 6.
Right. So
I've got the Hawks.
Do your play-in teams.
Okay, the Hawks at 7.
Okay,
and that's I'm not particularly high on the Hawks or anything like that, but somebody's got to go there. I've got the Nets at 8.
Okay.
I have the Bulls coming in at 10, just barely making it into. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops. I skipped 9. I've got the Pacers at 9.
Okay.
And then I have the Bulls just edging out the Raptors for the 10 seed. I don't feel great about that, but had to order it in some way. Then I've got the Magic coming in at 12. I could see. I guess let me finish this and I'll explain my thoughts on the Magic. The 13, I've got Pistons, 14 Hornets, 15 Wizards. Of the non-play-in team, I've got the Magic as the team that I think has the highest ceiling to make a leap up and knock out a team like the Bulls. So even though I have them labeled 12, I think they have the highest ceiling of Raptors, Magic, Pistons, Hornets, Wizards. I think they're the team that could jump up and get themselves into the play-in mix.
All right. So we're not that far off of each
No.
other really right now. I have Atlanta in 7,
Hmm.
then I have Indiana in 8, Brooklyn in 9, and I have Orlando in 10.
Okay.
So I have Chicago and Toronto out, and that may just be tired of them. Like I'm tired of both of those teams in their kind of current constructs. I just think so. Chicago and Toronto both feel like they could make trades that could really take the entire thing in a different direction.
Yes.
And then that becomes like a whole other thing with them. So it would not surprise me if any of those teams are in the play-in tournament, though. My bottom 3 in order, same 3 teams as you, just slightly different order. I have Charlotte, then Detroit, then Washington. Um, Detroit already starting out. The news just broke earlier today. Bogdanovich is out,
Yeah, I
Monte
saw it.
Morris is out, and Isaiah Livers is out. Bogdanovich and Morris are 4 weeks for Bogdanovich, 3 weeks for Morris. So that's just not great in Detroit. So we'll come back to that later. But I just think Indiana and Orlando, they just feel like they're ready to take that next step in. Atlanta is the team of this group I could see most confidently. I feel like could crack into the top 6.
Hmm.
Like if Philly slips or Miami doesn't care about the regular season, I think Atlanta's got the most talent of that group. And then the other thing I'll say with Toronto, why I'm so low on them is I just feel like even if they don't make trades, this seems like there's a lot of guys playing for contracts
Yeah.
on that team. You have Siakam, Anunoby, Trent, all free agents next season. Trent did not extend. Now he can extend all the way through because he's on an expiring deal, as can Siakam, as could Anunoby, but none of those seem very likely. Their GM already called them all selfish and was like, like
That was
just
bizarre.
yeah, crazy. And then, but on top of that, Scotty Barnes, year 3 guys are generally playing for a contract because they're playing to prove they should get the big extension in the following summer before they start their 4th year. So just something feels off to me with Toronto. And I think this is a year it kind of all comes crashing down and they're forced to pick a real direction one way or the other.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think part of it is we've been waiting for so long, it's felt like,
Yes.
for Toronto to finally pick a direction, that I just kind of have them sitting in limbo because that's just what they've been doing. And I suppose the same, like, Bulls fans should be upset when they see where we have the Bulls ranked. They should not want to be there. They should want to be
Yeah.
at the bottom. And
Yep.
hey, the Bulls are going to trade everybody, or they're going to go for it and they're going to make a push up. Like, where we've got them situated, that is not where they want to be right now.
And I don't think the Bulls are going to be terrible right
Mm.
away. I think it may be more of a, you know what, we're not where we want to be. Then they maybe pull the trigger a little too late on, all right, let's look at a DeRozan trade. Let's maybe look into a Levine trade or something like that. But it's already kind of like Brooklyn last year, right? Brooklyn
Mm-hmm.
kicked off a rebuild, but it already won way too many games to kind of keep going. I could see Brooklyn slipping out of that group and maybe Chicago replaces them in the play-in tournament. I could see that. I like the Nets group. They have the potential to be kind of bad offensively, I think. So I do worry about that a little bit, but we'll see ultimately where that goes. But yeah, so there's our East.
All right, there's our Eastern Conference. And I'm sorry, I should have paused after I did my playoff teams and
Don't
then
worry
jump
about
back
it.
to you.
It's all good.
But
No. Well,
I was so excited to
good.
run through my list. I felt like I had to just blurt it all out.
It's all good. It's all good.
Okay, let's get to the Western Conference
You
standings
kick us
here.
off.
Okay, I'll kick you off, and I'm going to do my top 6. And I think we said this before we came on the air here. The West standings, like, you could put whoever you want wherever you want. I'll say this: no matter who gets revealed as the 11th seed, their fan base has a reason to be upset.
Yep.
And to say, no, we are a playoff team clearly, and has a legitimate argument to make. So, all right, I've got the Nuggets number 1, just giving them that championship respect. We've seen, you mentioned that it almost feels like they're being overlooked. Part of that is we've seen a new champion for 5 years in a row now.
Sure.
So that's what we're seeing each year, and somebody else rises. Speaking of rising, I've got the Suns as the 2nd seed. I think that with what we saw in preseason from their bench, if their bench is as good as they they looked, or at least they're competent, that should go a long way. Now, of course, we also have news, though, that Bradley Beal is going to miss opening night. Devin Booker is only 50-50 to play. I can tell you what, though, both of them will be 150% available on Thursday when the Suns take on the Lakers, because that is the way it goes. That's the way things have gone. The Lakers as the 3 seed, which I'll be honest, I don't even as the Lakers get, I don't even feel great about that. I don't think they're going to push down on the gas pedal a ton. I think I projected them for 46 or 47 wins over on Lakers Nation, which I don't think is going to be good enough to put them in the 3 seed. But when I'm just ranking the teams, it's just kind of where I slotted them.
All right, hold on. We need to pause because we might have just made history here on the show.
What's that?
You say 46 or 47 wins?
Yeah.
I have the Lakers at 48 wins. So let it be known,
I like it.
Smith, Celtics guy, higher on the Lakers than Trevor Lane, Lakers guy.
I see part of it is, or actually a big part of it is, I look at this West and I think, oh my God, they're going to cannibalize themselves all season. That's the problem.
Yep.
That's
that
really
I
the
can
problem.
completely agree with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I finished off at Lakers at 3. I have the Warriors at 4. Again, there's like 8 teams I could put there, and it would totally make sense. I have the Kings at 5, and I'm gonna buy somewhat that the Clippers are actually going to care about the regular season. I'm gonna put them at 6.
Oh my God. So I promise I'm not making this up. We are exactly the same.
No.
For the top 6.
Come on.
To the team in the same order, everything. I will say, after the Steven Adams injury, I moved Memphis from 3 to 7. That seems like a massive drop in the standings, but wins-wise, I only dropped them like 4 wins. And it's not that Steven Adams alone is worth 4 wins. It was just the kind of the cumulative effect now of no Adams, no Morant, no Brandon Clark. That's 2 starters plus your key rotational backup big are all not going to be there. That just starts to feel a little like, all right, you're 1 injury away from the wheels come off this thing, and now all of a sudden you're fighting, down in the play-in. So that was the news came out. Adams was out 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. So that was a change for me yesterday as I went kind of through this and said, all right, how do I see that impact? But yeah, other than that, we're exactly the same for our top 6.
That's how we are not a hot take show at all, because otherwise we would have met beforehand. We would have compared our lists. We would have rearranged everything. And then we would have spent 5 minutes yelling at each other about why each one of us is wrong.
And all right, so rather than go through why I have them all there, because you kind of covered it, I'll just say some of the stuff that I see with some of these teams. For example, I'll use the Lakers. How many games are we going to get out of some of these guys? Right. Yeah. So if you're telling me 65-ish games, all right, I feel pretty good saying they probably can get to the 3 seed. If you knocked it down to 55 games, I'm thinking 4, 5, 6 range for them. And obviously I'm talking about LeBron, AD as the key players on the team. It's the same kind of thing with the Warriors. If you start telling me Steph and Draymond are going to miss a bunch of time, we know Draymond's not going to play opening night, but sounds like he's really close. I'm going to knock them down in the list. That's where I got to with the Clippers, because I was just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not putting you in home court advantage range again. I'm just, make me look dumb by actually showing up and playing and caring enough to be in that range. But that's how compact and tight the West is. I'll just say this, from the 3 seed to the 11 seed in the West, when I did my win projections, actually, I'm going to change it. From the 3 seed to the 12 seed in the West, it's a difference of 10 total wins for me. That's how compact I have it in the Western Conference. So that is literally a bad couple weeks, a month-long injury you didn't expect. I feel like that can completely change where you're going standings-wise.
And I mean, that's par for the course. You look at up on the screen right now is last season, and the difference between 3 and 10 was 6 wins, right?
Yep.
Like that's 3 and 12 was 11 wins. So yeah, I mean That's exactly what we're expecting. Like and this is why I could put all of these names in a hat and draw randomly, and and that could be just as right as anything else we can come up with,
Sure.
because it is going to be so close. And I think injuries are going to play a big factor in this. And that's why, God, see, I don't feel good about this. I don't feel good about this, but I have the Grizzlies as the team dropping out.
All the
And
way out?
all the way out. And
All
again,
right.
because I had no team that I could slot in 11 that I felt good about.
All right, so run
There is
through
no
your
team.
7 through 10. then.
So my 7 through 10, I've got the Thunder, the Wolves, the Pelicans, and then the Mavs. And I could make a
Thunder,
case.
Wolves, Pelicans, Mavs. Okay.
And then I've got Grizzlies sitting at 11. And I could make a case for any of those teams to jump into the top group. You could rearrange that order, of course, but that's the way I've got it. I think OKC is going to make a leap this year. I'm higher on the Wolves than most people are. And then the Pelicans, look, if Zion is healthy, they're probably higher than this. If Zion is not healthy, they're probably lower than this. Like that's just reality. The Mavs, because somebody's got to be intent. Like I don't know, Keith.
Yeah. So all right. So we're a little different here. So I bumped Memphis down to 7, as I said. I took them down to 7th. I still believe in the infrastructure there, and I think Taylor Jenkins is one of the absolute best coaches in the league.
Sure.
So I think for them, my goal for those first 25 games with John Morant, especially now knowing Adams is also out, like get through that at like 13 and 12, basically 500, and then try to hit the last 2/3 of the season, really, full bore going forward. So then my next team, I have New Orleans. I'm with you. If you could tell me we're gonna get 70 games of Zion, probably have him closer to 4th than I would 8th. I don't know. And if you tell me we're gonna get 30 games of Zion, I'm probably putting them like 12th in the conference. So kind of split the difference there and call 8th. Dallas, I'm gonna trust in Kyrie and in Luca. I just like they're good, right? So I feel weird putting them any lower. And I don't know, after what they did last year to tank out to make sure they kept the pick, I don't know that we're going to see that fly again for another year. I think you start setting a very bad precedent with Luca if you're not winning games. And let's face it, we know how this works. He's halfway through that rookie scale extension. They're on the clock, right? With him, they're very much like, all right, here we go with this. Then from that, my last team in the play-in tournament, I have is Oklahoma City. I actually have the Wolves as the team missing. I don't feel good about it. I love Anthony Edwards. Anybody who knows, listen to even yesterday's show knows I'm super high on Jaden McDaniels. Something just feels wrong with that team. I feel like either Towns or Gobert, if it's not now, it's gonna be over the summer that something happens there and they trade somebody. It just feels weird. I feel like this team is set to lean into the Anthony Edwards is our guy. He's the face of the franchise. He's the guy we're building around. We're going to trade one of the two bigs. Quite frankly, probably be Towns because you'll get a better return, I think, on him than you would Gobert. And that just becomes a little messy. So again, don't feel great about it, picking them to not even make the play-in tournament because I like a lot of their guys. I just, and then the Thunder, it was really between those two because I think a lot of people might be maybe a year early on the Thunder because I'm seeing that some people like they're going to be a top 6 team. Maybe they'll be in the mix for home court advantage. That feels a little far for me, but I do think they're going to be good. And that's why I wanted to kind of have them in my play-in tournament. Yeah. I just want to mention them here because they're close. Like Utah, to me, I have them in 12th, and they are clearly just behind the other teams, but well ahead of my bottom 3 in order. I have Houston, San Antonio, and Portland in that order. So
I do as well.
Yeah. So I just feel like Utah is clearly ahead of those teams. And Utah's another team I could see playing well enough that we look up and it's like, well, there's 2 weeks left in the season and they're definitely going to be a play-in team just because, that they've got enough talent to be able to pull that off.
Utah, I agree. I think they're in a tier by themselves. I think there's the top 11 in the West that you to varying degrees could make an argument for them to be slotted just about anywhere. Of course, obviously Denver, you've got and the Suns and stuff. You've got more of an argument of them being at the top than say the Wolves being at the top or something. But there's a lot of parity, a lot of movement here in the West. But I do think Utah sits alone in a tier by themselves until they prove otherwise, until they prove they're in that upper tier or that they're not. They're in the lower tier. The lower tier to me, though, is so well defined. Rockets, Spurs, Blazers. I think these are teams that aren't necessarily they would like to win, but they're not concerned necessarily with winning right now. Their focus is on development, and so I think that sort of energy will play out over the course of the season. That just organizationally, we know they're not going for it at the moment. So Rockets, Spurs, Blazers at the bottom.
There's a lot of stuff going around, especially in the last couple of days. I think it's just excitement. The season's coming and all that. There's a lot of stuff going around of like, could Houston be a playoff team? I've seen this and this is not just like Rockets fans driving this. This is also some people I really respect. I think the Rockets will be a far better team next season. I think they will win more games. I don't think it really will show up all that much in the standings. I think there's also, you run the risk with the Rockets. If I have it correct, I believe they're sitting on a top 4 protected pick this season. So you could see it turn into, all right, things just kind of didn't go exactly where we want. They maybe don't try all that hard to get out of the top 4, right? Knowing you could get bounced with bad lottery luck or whatever. But I just don't see it. San Antonio, I also think, is going to win a good amount more games. I just don't see it being resulting in a massive climb up the standings. What I actually think happens in the West is the teams at the bottom win more and the teams at the top win less. Yep. I only have, as I went through it, and this is no knock again on these Western Conference teams, it's just a nod to the strength of the conference. I only have Denver and Phoenix cracking 50 wins in the conference. I think everybody else, I said it already, I have the Lakers at 3rd with 48 wins because I am the one who's most high on the Lakers of anybody who's ever been a host or co-host of this show, apparently. So it is I just think those bottom teams are going to take wins from some of the playoff teams. And then that's going to leave us in a spot where that's going to be why it's so cramped and congested in the middle with everybody in the middle between like 48 and like 42 wins.
That's exactly how I see it playing out as well. Is I think that while the Rockets, the Spurs, they're not going to be as good, they're better than they were last season. Yep. Better enough to where they're going to get a random Wednesday night. They'll beat somebody that you wouldn't expect them to enough times to where they're going to siphon off some wins from the upper echelon team. So that's the way I see the West playing out. I think it's going to be an exciting season. I think there's going to be movement up and down the standings all season long. And that's the way it's going to be. And so that's going to create a lot of excitement. But
let's just talk about Portland for a quick second. I think they're going to be terrible record wise, but I think they're going to be really fun to watch. And I think Blazers fans, considering, I know the last couple of years they've been a little bit down, but they were one of the more consistent teams for years, where it's like, yeah, just plug the Blazers in the playoffs somewhere because they're always going to be there. That felt like a decade long run or so of that. They, I think they're going to look back on and be like, man, we stunk, but what a fun season we had, because we got to watch Scoot and Shaden Sharp and Simons and really watch this group develop, into, whatever we're going to be when we're good and ready to win again. And I think that's okay, right? It gets so, at this time of year, people get so angry when it's like, you picked my team to be in last, and it's like, well, somebody has to be. And I think in general, that's not the worst thing when that's kind of just by design almost. Not that they're tanking right out of the gate, because they're clearly not. I just think in the conference and in the league as a whole, they're just going to be behind everybody. And it's, just a little hard to kind of get there. And I shouldn't say behind everybody, because I do think they'll probably be better than Washington. It may be potentially better than Detroit and Charlotte, but it's, somebody has to finish last in the conference. And for me, it's Portland, and it's not even meant as a major criticism in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the nature of the beast this year. All right, let's get into a few of the major awards. Let's talk about that.
We'll come back and do our conference finals and finals picks.
Yeah, we can finish off with that.
Yep.
Okay. So let's start with MVP. Who do you think is the MVP of the season?
I think when it comes down to it, we will look back on it and say probably should have been Nikola Jokic for what I think. Well, the conversation will be should have been 4 in a row because I think now people are like, probably should have won it last year. And to be clear, I had no problem with Joel Embiid winning it last year. Um, but I think he's going to throttle down some. Denver's going to throttle down some. And I think voters in general, they try to look for who's the best player on the best team. I think the Celtics will have the best record this year. Everything is pointing towards Jason Tatum making that kind of final leap into the superstar level. So I'm picking Jason Tatum to win MVP this year, somewhat out of just, I don't know how hard other guys are going to push for it who have historically been at that level.
So I went with Giannis for
Okay.
similar reasons, being that again, I think that you've got to be, in order to get into the MVP talks, you've got to be one of the top tier teams in your conference. And in the West, it's going to be such a jumble. You're essentially predicting two things. You're predicting, number one, that team X is going to be a top tier team in the West, which that in and of itself it can be quite a gamble. And then you're predicting that player is going to have a great season. I feel more confident that both Boston and Milwaukee are going to have really good seasons. They're going to be good this year. And so that provides a little bit more certainty. And so when I'm looking at who could I take between those two teams, I'm going to go with Giannis. I think you make a good case for Jason Tatum. Just to go anti-Celtic, I went Giannis.
And with Denver too, there's a world where like Denver goes into the playoffs as like the 3rd seed because they don't really care. And then it's just kind of, all right, we're the 3rd seed. And I don't, again, not a, there's no disrespect meant there, but that's Jokic probably doesn't win MVP as the 3rd seed.
Yeah.
Just the way things go. All right. Who's your rookie of the year?
Oh, I was going defensive player of the year.
Oh, okay. And then, let's go defensive player next. That's fine.
So defensive player of the year, I'll make my homer pick here. I think he's been the best defensive player in the league for a few years now. Just hasn't been healthy enough to take home the hardware. I think he massively outplayed the reigning defensive player of the year in the first round of the playoffs last year, showed that they're not anywhere close in terms of their defensive abilities. It's now or never for Anthony Davis. He is arguably the most talented defensive player of this generation. And there's a few other guys you could put into the mix. And if he doesn't take one home, it would be certainly unfortunate over the course of his career, given how good he's been, understanding that the injuries are going to be a factor there and he's got to get to 65 games. I'm going to say this is the year that he gets it done because I think it is now or never for him.
Yeah, so I'm going to caveat mine with, I just don't know that he makes the games played requirement. Otherwise, I would have also picked Anthony Davis because I think the strength of that Lakers team will be him as an individual player and his kind of to me, when it matters most now, he is the most destructive individual defensive force there is in the game because Giannis just doesn't bring it like that regularly. Embiid can't do the things on the perimeter that Davis can do, and Kawhi just, that's not what he does now at this point in his career. I would still say over everybody else in the league, if I needed one player to make one stop, I'm still picking LeBron over everybody just because he's so smart. You're not going to trick him, right? Like you're never going to throw him something where it's like, holy crap, they backdoor cut LeBron and you didn't see it coming. But I think night to night, I think it'll be Davis. The only reason I didn't pick him is I don't know if he gets to the 65 games.
Totally fair.
If he doesn't get to the 65 games, I'm going to go Evan Mobley. A little bit of a, not, I mean, again, he's an all defense level guy anyway. So I just think for him, I think that Cavs team is going to be really good. And I think what starts to happen is we start to look for, all right, who can we recognize that hasn't been, if there's not a super clear cut, this is the guy. And I think what could happen is I think you're going to see a lot of, well, we all agree it's Anthony Davis, but he's not eligible. So who do we want to pick? And that's why I'm picking Evan Mobley.
All right. I can't argue too much with that because, again, if AD doesn't make the games played, then he's not winning it. To get to yours, the rookie of the year, I mean, it's hard to pick anybody but Victor Wembanyama at this point. Like you can make, I guess you can make an argument for Scoot or whatever, but the stuff we're seeing Wemby do, the buzz that he's got, I haven't looked at the betting odds. I'm sure he's a very heavy favorite to win rookie of the year.
I'm picking Wembanyama too because I mean it's so much of this comes down to narrative, and he's gonna be a nightly highlight machine.
Yeah.
And what you won't see, and unfortunately, what some of the voters won't see in the like is the games where he is 2 for 10 shooting with 7 turnovers and doesn't have a
Yeah.
huge impact. What you'll see is the 2 highlight blocks he had in some ridiculous play where it's like, how did he dunk that ball?
Right.
You won't see the messiness. I think the only other guy that I seriously considered here, and you know how much I love Scoot Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
Victor's like a whole other thing. So Scoot's my favorite player from this class. Like I just think he's terrific. I think he's gonna be great. Chet Holmgren could get
Mm.
that nod of super productive and team is good. People can jump in the comments and yell and argue he's not a rookie. The NBA calls him a rookie. He's not played an NBA game. Officially, he's a rookie. He's eligible for the award. He's the only one I see and we will have some push right towards, hey, let's go a different direction here, right? There's always some counterculture movement. And if there is, I think it'll go towards Chet Holmgren, where it's like, hey, his team's actually good. He's really productive. Why are we not going with him? Kind of happened a little bit with like Walker Kessler last year, where it's like, hey, why not Walker Kessler? Like I could see it being, why not Chet Holmgren? But I'm picking Victor Wembanyama too.
All right. All right. Let's get to the sixth man of the year. I guess I'll kick things off. The sixth man, it's become over the years, it's become who's the highest scoring guy on a good team off the bench, right? That's it's become like the Lou Williams, the Jamal Crawford style players. And there's a few guys that we could look at with that. I'm curious to see what Tyler Hero's usage is with Miami. I think he's a guy where if he's not starting, and again, we'll see how many.
Though.
That's the thing. I think he's going to start. He's going to start enough games to where he won't be eligible. So I'm going to go with from the Sacramento Kings. I'm going to go with Malik Monk. I think he could be. Did you pick him too?
I'm so mad. I picked Malik Monk too. And I was like, I'm gonna be like the one who has this. Like, and yep. Oh man. We need to spend less time together or something.
I guess I actually, and I made that pick a few days ago because we did this exercise for Lakers Nation. We wrote it up for the website. So this was not something where like I somehow, we came on, I read your thoughts or something like that. No, this is, I've had this one for a few days now. This is, I think this is a great pick by you then, Keith. This is just a fantastic decision.
Great. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's as Danny LaRue likes to call it, our friend, likes to call it the Yay Points Award. Like that's kind of what it is, right? And I think a lot of it is I feel most confident he will be the one coming off the bench the most too. There's a couple other guys that I kind of look at with this, and I'm like, I don't really know. Like, I'll be honest, if I felt confident that someone like Derek White was going to come off the bench a lot more, I'd probably pick Derek White, because I think what you would see is, all right, he scores enough, but he also does everything else too. So then they may be like, all right, hey, let's really reward the all-around play there. But yeah, man, I think Malik Monk's the guy I feel most confident in, comes off the bench the most, and quite frankly, should have been really in the mix last year too. And I think he might have finished third behind Brogdon and Quickly, which was fine. Those two guys were outstanding 6 men, but yeah, I'm not sure. Now, I will say Emmanuel Quickly was on my list because I don't think he's going to start like he did last year when he started a good chunk of games. I think he will come off the bench quite a bit. But yeah, that's where I am with Malik Monk too.
Yeah, I'm obviously not going to disagree with that. All right, let's get into the conference finals. So, why don't you start with the East? I guess it's pretty easy. The East, I think it's going to be the Bucks and the Celtics.
Yeah, we're both in the same place, and I picked Celtics over Bucks.
Okay, I'm going to hold out hope and go Bucks over Celtics. But yeah, that was. They also got bounced in the first round last year, so who knows what's going to happen there.
For what it's worth, we're not going through the entire playoffs.
No,
I know I said I had Miami as the 6th seed. I do have them making it into the second round. I just think, once they run into Milwaukee is where I have them playing the Bucks in the second round. I think they'll fall out there.
Yeah. In the West, oh God, it's so difficult. It's so difficult in the West. I'm gonna say, goodness, I'm going to say that Denver's run of incredible health that we saw last season does not continue, and I'm going to say we're going to get Suns Lakers
Okay.
in the West Finals.
All right. And who do you pick to win that?
I'm going to go with. I'll take my Lakers. I'll make the homer pick, and I'll
Okay.
take my Lakers.
That's fair.
That's fair.
I'm picking Denver and Phoenix. Again, I'm with you. Same place. It's give me any of those teams. I also have Golden State, in the mix. Those are my final 4 teams in the West. But yeah, I'm picking Denver and Phoenix, and I'm gonna go with Denver just because I feel like by the time we get there, I don't know if Phoenix will be. I trust Denver to be healthy by the time we get there way more than I trust Phoenix. By the time we get all the way to the West Finals, are they going to be tired? Are they going to be down a key player or two? What is it going to look like? So I'm picking Denver to go. So my finals is Celtics Nuggets. Fine, call it the homer pick.
I was going to say we're going to wind up picking our own teams.
I badly wanted to pick Celtics Lakers to make it. And anybody, if you're new to this show, everybody who watches knows every year since we've been doing this, pretty much, because they've been basically tied in titles since we relaunched the show. Our ideal finals is Celtics Lakers to break the tie and then piss off 28 other fan bases and be like, because we'll act like this is how it's ordained and should be. Right. But I just trust the Nuggets too much. I have way too much faith and belief in Jokic. So I'm going with Celtics over Nuggets to win the title.
All right, and I've got Bucks and Lakers, and I'll make the homer pick too, and I'll go Lakers to get it done and get number 18. I think you're right though. If there was a chance for the NBA to get Lakers Celtics for number 18, oh my gosh, that would be a dream for the NBA. Dream scenario.
It feels like if it's like we're maybe running short on time for that to be like the way it is, just because how many more years is LeBron going to do this? Even though now, did you see the new thing? Like, I think it was his wife said he wants to play with the younger one.
Yeah. Who's going to be in the NBA maybe in like 3 years?
Yeah. Yeah. I
went, whoa.
Look, if you're telling me LeBron plays 25, 26 seasons, I'm not going to count it out at this point. Like, sure, why not? I guess. Like, I have no reason, but and I don't even think it'd be ridiculous. Like, all right, he's playing, but like he's on the team. Like he doesn't like. I think he could just keep going and keep playing at a pretty high level. So yeah, but yeah, it does feel like I don't know, because I just even with the Celtics too, it's like, all right, how long are you gonna keep this up, like where you're right there but never all the way there? Like eventually that's going to go away too. So maybe this is it. Maybe this is the year. Maybe because we didn't pick it, we get rewarded by the basketball gods with that outcome. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it does happen, because that would be huge for the NBA. That would be massive.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
all right, guys. Give us your picks right in the comments. You don't have to go all the way through them. If you want to, please do. But let us know in the comments, who you think it is. And now that we've recorded it, I'll put my stuff out on Twitter X and just put it out there so everybody can yell at me there that I'm an idiot and I'm too low on their team. But I like to do it just as a fun exercise to see where things are at. But yeah, let us know what you're thinking, because we're curious. If nothing else, give us who you think the finals and your finals pick will be, because that's always fun to run through.
That's right. Let us know your thoughts again in that comment section. Make sure you're following us over on the podcast side on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, and of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us during the NBA Front Office Show. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Till then, see ya and stay safe.